Welcome to the Smarter Spaces podcast. We've got an amazing show looking back at 2024 and rubbing our crystal balls to see what the future of 2025 will hold. We did this over two separate recordings with our two guests, which include Julian Phillips, who is Senior Vice President and Managing Director for XTG. They're a global experimental technology division of AVI-SPL. And then everybody knows Dave Hatz, who is Machine and Intelligence VP for CTI and all-round AI expert joining us. We'll get those two to introduce themselves and we'll run through the same questions with both and kind of mash them up between them and create this awesome episode for you to see what's going on in 2025 and what were the turkeys and what were the hits for 2024. So starting off with Julian, I'll let him introduce himself and then over to Dave Hatz to introduce himself to you all for today's show.
Yeah, I lead an organization called XTG, which stands for the Experience Technology Group. It's a new division inside AVI-SPL, just 3 years old. And we focus on really bringing the human being to the center of design in a number of different ways. Firstly, it's about how we help our customers tell their story to their customers. So that might be innovation centers, experience centers. It could be things like immersive retail. And if you extend that analogy, then it could be a university trying to engage students with immersive technology. The second way we work is really trying to help our customers change the dynamic in their relationship with their employees. Now, one of the big issues we'll talk about in this podcast is around return to work. And so a lot of the work we do is trying to imagine what the future of work is going to look like. And a lot of employers are trying to figure out how do they encourage people to come back into the workplace. So we're taking a lot of those immersive experiential techniques from the consumer world, and we're actually starting to bring those into the workplace too. So we're having a lot of fun. We're growing like crazy, and it's a great time to be alive.
My name's Dave Hatz. I've been in the AV industry for almost 25 years. I've done everything from building systems, designing, leading software teams. And now my role over the last couple of years has really turned into a focus on AI. And so I work for CTI, a large integrator in the US, and lead their AI practice. But to your point, I've also joined up with the Selling Microsoft Teams Rooms group and help provide a tip for using Copilot. And really, it can apply to almost any generative AI. But each week, we roll out a tip of here's a reason that you might find more value from Copilot than and something you weren't aware of. So just really, really exciting opportunity to share experience and level up everyone who's watching that.
So you met our two guests. We started off with looking back at what were the misses for 2024, starting off with Julian.
A lot of customers, for very good reasons, have not necessarily had the courage of their convictions to do full-scale deployments of the things that they know they need to do. And I think that particular turkey is overcooked right now on the basis that we have no option going into 2025 to really make full-on decisions about this is the way we believe that we want to operate our workplace, that we want to engage our employees, and we really need to make sure that those upgrade paths, the technology that is now available to us, that we really go full on and actually get that implemented. So I think that's a turkey that I think has held back a lot of these large scale deployments. And I think customers are beginning to realize they can no longer wait and they need to deploy. So I'm looking forward to a really productive 2025. I think we're going to see a significant growth for all of us in this industry.
I talked to Dave about a trend or a technology that came out in 2024, which didn't really kind of come to full deployment. And he thinks is going to be a big ticket item for 2025.
There's a lot of talk right now around space reservation, things like Microsoft Places, Cisco Spaces, and organizations are piquing their interest in it, but haven't really figured out what they're going to do with it. So I think there's going to be a big trend in 2025 around this. What I'm not sure, honestly, is how far the full vision is going to be adopted. And the reason I say that is today's expectation of all of those systems is that employees change the way they reserve space, the way they plan to come into the office, the way they coordinate with coworkers. And absolutely the vision that's been cast by all of these platforms is viable. And we will see some organizations adopt it as it's been laid out so far. But I think we're really going to see a maturization where the market is going to drive the next set of features in these platforms. And we're going to find that, I think, I try to be really positive, but I'm a skeptic that employees are going to change the way they come to the office. How many people, in your experience, how many people actually reserve conference rooms compared to just show up, find a room, and walk into it?
It's funny. We were doing a presentation on the Crestron Desk Q, the scheduling panel we have, and we used two scenarios. And the person who's demonstrating was like, I'm here the night before. I'm coming in tomorrow. I'm scheduling the panel, and that's what I do. I give the Neil example of like I've just rocked up. I'm like, not booked anything. I'm completely ad hoc, and I'm like, I need a desk. And so those were the classic two examples. The very organized, future looking, I'm coming in tomorrow or for the next 3 days, I will book that desk. And then oh crikey, I've not done anything, I need a desk, I need somewhere to work.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think in 25 we're going to see that play out. We're going to see organizations adopt the practices that work for their workforce, the way that they work. And so, coming out of 25, I think we'll be in a much more mature spot around this area. But I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like because, frankly, I look to the workforce to drive the direction of that, not for the smart engineers and the product people to cast the vision and just expect compliance with it. So it'll be interesting to see here. The next one that I think of is definitely a continued reliance on the different UC platforms, the Microsoft, the Zoom, the Cisco. Innovation will continue to drive the roadmap of our industry. And we've seen this for the past couple of years, and there's no different there. But where I think we're going to start to really see this accelerate in a different direction that we haven't seen so far is, the word that I wasn't supposed to say, AI. But when you think of the buzz around AI right now from a personal standpoint is making sure that I have AI on this, making sure I have AI on my laptop, and having my own AI. Well, now when I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. So it's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. And so when you think about it, yes, some of it will happen on personal devices, but we've already seen meeting transcription and some of those pieces tie in through the UC platforms. And so I think there's going to be this really interesting dynamic playing out in 2025 of some of it driven by the platform, some of it driven by personal needs, but looking to the AV industry to bridge that gap of how do I access the voice, the microphone, the speakers, so that I have, as a worker in the office or in the meeting room, I have access to my own AI to do all the things that the agents are going to bring to us and that, my personal generative AI tools, unlock in a way that's more seamless. And again, the way I want to work. Again, I don't know that this will be solved in 2025, but I think we're going to see a lot of momentum in this, particularly probably in the second half of the year. And it's an area that I think, our industry really has an opportunity to be part of the discussion.
Now, one of the things looking back at 2024 that you can't fail to talk about is elections. We've had one here in the UK. There's been one in North America as well. So I discussed with Julian what he thinks the impact those have had on the industry with customers, buying trends, and partners and manufacturers.
The elections absolutely played a hand, especially in the United States. The uncertainty about the economic situation. There's still macro market and macro geopolitical issues around wars and things like that. But I think there's also another factor, which is an internal factor, is so people are still looking for an insane amount of evidence that this is the right thing to do before they actually do it. And the reality is that's not the world now. We are no longer.
Paralysis is the new thing, isn't
it?
You sit there and go through everything and the specs and you just paralyze yourself and don't do anything.
And I think what we need to do is have the courage of our conviction on the basis that we believe this is the right thing to do for our business, irrespective of whether other people are doing it. If we think it's the right thing for us, and that we're getting a good sense that this is how our people want to work and the environments that we want to create, you just have to go and do it. And the old sort of 5-year depreciation model that we used to do with tech, where it's like we're pretty certain of the standards we want for the next 5 years, we'll own, operate, and depreciate over that time period. That's all gone. That's done. So, to that end, I think we have to get into a circular design process and really start to have constant iteration in how we think about technology.
Now, we couldn't talk about 2024 or 25 without talking about those two letters, AI. We're just over 10 minutes into the show, and it's time we got into that topic. I asked Dave around AI and how it's going to affect the meeting room with not just things like camera technology, but also transcription and also data capturing and transcribing meeting notes, and also what companies can do with that data.
If you think of the meeting room and think of the visual side of the meeting room, the trend over the last year or two has been more cameras. More smart cameras.
You can never have enough cameras.
That can frame the best angle, center of table cameras. Throughout the industry, there's this focus on more angles of video. One of the things I think we're going to see come out, and I don't know if it'll be 2025 or 2026, but I think we're going to start to see AI at the cloud taking those images and determining how do I actually craft an avatar of Neil, an avatar of Dave that is photorealistic, that shows my expressions, that is me, but is the same view that you're getting straight on in this camera shot, regardless of where I'm looking in the room, regardless of what I'm doing. By having those multiple camera angles, it's going to be able to stitch together that digital twin. And that's what's going to be in the conference call for the far side. I think we're going to see a lot of focus with that, of getting rid of the backgrounds. We'll take that out of there, and we'll be able to get to that vision of everyone in a square on a remote side, but everyone actually properly framed, regardless what they're doing in the meeting room, where they're looking, who they're talking to. Now, again, it seems like a ways off, but there's some really impressive technology out there today, and I think it's just a matter of time before we start to see that kind of experience, because that really takes away the biggest hurdle of meeting equity, as we talk about it a lot. You and I both talk about that, and the idea is that we want to be seen and heard when we're in a call, and vice versa. When we're in the room, we want to see and hear. And so, I think there's a lot that AI is going to contribute to in that, but I expect, that's probably the next wave of innovation I foresee coming in the meeting room. Now, to your question about, sort of the management and the data side, I really expect us, we're at this weird precipice right now where Microsoft is putting a big push around MDEP. So it's the Microsoft Device Ecosystem Platform. And the idea is for Android devices, our industry is built on these. They're offering it up, and Zoom has a very similar platform. They're offering it up as a pre-built operating system platform that device manufacturers can build upon. Now, I'm not going to get into debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but one of the things I really expect to start seeing is, to your point about management of devices, we've built our industry on bespoke tools. Crestron as a vendor has their tool, and you guys partner with others to extend them, but it's still a tool that's really focused on your product. Every other OEM has the same type of platform that's really focused on their products. Well, the concept of MDEP, whether it's that platform or something else, I think is going to continue to gain traction, because what it does is it brings an underlying, like a core fundamental data connection to Intune, where every IT administrator already administers their devices.
Yeah,
and
single pane of glass.
Single pane of glass without effort. There's platforms out there that we can build the connections and aggregate your cloud and the next cloud and the next cloud together and try to stitch it together, but it's hard. It's costly. It's tricky, and it's complex. If we, again, just the way Microsoft and Zoom have taken over the UC platform space, and they drive the direction we're going with the way we design systems, I expect that we're going to start to see that at the management level as well. Will we get every feature that we have in a custom Crestron XIO platform? Maybe not, but are we going to get the important ones? At least over time, I think we will. Now, the key to that all is it's going to be a slow moving progress. And so I don't foresee the XIO clouds and the other management platforms going away anytime soon. But I think we're going to start to see a simplification in that space. And it's frankly something I welcome, having lived in that space for over a decade now, because it's time.
Now, Julian's got a really interesting take on AI and the actual meaning of the two letters, not artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence. Let's take his view on AI and listen to how he thinks AI is going to be a tool for 2025.
Here's my take on AI, and in fact, I've agreed with a fellow commentator in this crazy world that we're going to cease to call it artificial intelligence because there's nothing artificial about it. We're actually going to call it augmented intelligence. So that's the real AI. In other words, the augmentation of us human beings. And I prefer to think of it in that way because I think when we start to look at the opportunities of what AI can do to augment us frail and rather weak individuals, to give us superpowers in a way that is really going to unlock productivity in a way that I don't think we've ever really experienced, and to make transformation of business process, I think there's huge potential upside. Now, the reason why I'm delighted by this is that I stood on a stage in our company at the beginning of 2023 when no one really had any real understanding of even though AI has been around for 50, 60, 70 years, but the context of AI in our industry. And I said, AI is going to be the big new thing. And I've been blown away, quite frankly, by how it has really taken over the narrative, not just inside the industry, but also with every single one of our customers. You know, we were planning with our Canadian colleagues about events we're going to do next year. And our managing director for Canada said, please, we do not want to do a single event in Canada next year where AI isn't the central conversation because our customers don't want to hear about anything else. So am I delighted? Yes. Do I think it's overhyped? Maybe a little bit, but I could also argue the flip and say it's underhyped. So, think on that for a moment.
Now, I asked Dave to get his crystal ball out and look further out past 2025 into the future when I've got slightly more grey hairs. And of course, the topics discussed were around the future of AI. So let's cross over to Dave and see what his crystal ball holds for beyond 2025.
To me, I think, we can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. We're just at a point.
Pandora's box is open. It's not closing again.
It is. We've seen organizations adopting it, at quicker paces all this year. I was reading yesterday in Business Insider that KPMG put out a study that 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience, and so we're on the AI bandwagon. I mean, it's you got to go with it. So I think the real focus over the next few years is going to be discussion around AGI. Artificial general intelligence. The key is there's no definition of what that is. There's innuendo, there's big corporate speak around it. But again, it's the maturization of AI to the point where it can do what most humans can do. Maybe not on the physical side, but at least on the cognitive side. And so over the next few years, we're going to continue to see immense leaps in AI and the way it applies and the opportunities. We're going to see a real uptick in 2025 and then growing of on-device AI. So you've seen Microsoft launch the Copilot PCs. Apple now has the AI chip inside of the newest iPhones. And we haven't seen these really do much yet. That's going to change quick. We're going to start to
sitting dormant, waiting to.
Exactly. We're going to see models shrinking. We're going to see we're going to see more models, because the key with AI models is the more data, or the training it on the right data, gets you better results on specific tasks. And so I think we're going to see, especially as we talk about on-device AI, we're going to see smaller AI models. We're going to see more of them, but they're going to be better at specific tasks. And so, the challenge I give to every system integrator, every vendor, every end user is to keep an open mind, to be open to set a culture where you're open to thinking about how AI in its current state can improve your efficiency, certainly, but how can it unlock you to do more, to do different than you've done in the past? And often that's going to mean working differently. But over the next 2, maybe 3 years, I think we're all going to find that most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly. And that doesn't have to be bad. And that's where I think, a lot of the social debate gets into, well, I like my job. Great, but I bet you there's parts of it you don't like. And so, as we go a couple of years out, the thought of having AI at our fingertips, on our devices, on our watch, everywhere we go, doing 10x better than where we were yesterday, that's really exciting to me. And I don't have a crystal ball of when we hit AGI. When Sam Altman can't agree with AMD, can't agree with Microsoft on it, I'm not even going to speculate in that game. But this idea that we are going to a day where we are going to have intelligence around us that is a peer in the cognitive space, it really opens up the human to think about, okay, where do we bring the value, the creativity, the judgment, the things that humans by nature have always been best at.
Now, we talked a lot about the technology and trends, but one of the things I wanted to talk to Julian about was with regards to how organizations are going to adopt work in 2025 onwards. This concept of, are we going to work remotely? Are we going to be hybrid? Are we going to all go back to an office? And again, that discussion about how business leaders should look to be able to deploy their teams remotely and in offices and maximize the productivity of their employees moving forward.
When the pandemic was in, its throes, and we started to plan return to office, that first iteration of return to office, and then we had version 2, version 3, version 4, and none of it sort of figured out. I was doing a presentation to our customers where I quoted one of my heroes, Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And people were saying, we don't know what the answer is. I said, I'll tell you what the answer is. The answer is 42. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's the answer to the life, the universe, and everything. I said, but here's my version of 42 for the workplace, is that most people in workplace planning used to plan on what they call a 70% badge rate. In other words, you would plan and design a building and office environment and conference rooms based on the assumption that 70% of your people will be in the office 5 days a week, 9 to 5. And that's an occupancy map that would vary up and down a little bit, but it was an average. I said, what's going to happen in the future is we're going to end up with 60% of that 70%. In other words, 3 days a week. 60% of the 70% is what we're going to end up with. Times 60 by 70, you end up with 42. 42 is the average occupancy that you're actually going to plan for moving forward, as opposed to 70. I think I'm going to be proven right on average in that particular area. Why? Because even when I talk to customers and they say, oh yeah, we've got return to office, everyone back in the office. I said, oh, what, 5 days a week? Well, no, 3 days a week, but everyone's back in the office, So I think there are some extremes, and we've seen certainly in the financial services sector, certainly in various others, where people are saying 5 days a week back to the way it was. We even have customers who never changed, even the way all through the pandemic, they were 100% all the way through. So, but I think on average, we should expect that we're going to have much lower levels of occupancy. The corporate real estate market knows this. They've adjusted. They're looking at different ways to use workspace in every way. But here's the thing. If we are only going to be back together, which I think is the optimal way that we as human beings in the workplace work, even though there are productivity gains from remote work when we figure that out, we've got to elevate the experience that we have when we are together. And so just being able to go back to the workplace and working in exactly the same way we did 5, 6 years ago before the pandemic, where you sit at a desk, not talking to each other,
joining Teams calls with each other.
you're doing Teams calls. You end up going into a conference room where you spend hours upon end in a conference room and meetings that don't matter, that have no structure, that, all of that kind of stuff. Then a lot of people are going to say, why am I here when I could do a lot of that when I'm working from home? So the future of workplace is, how do we encourage creativity, engagement, problem solving, team building, peer training and coaching? These are the things that workers want and need, and organizations need to be able to encourage and protect their brand, to be able to build cohesion, employee engagement. And so a lot of what we have to think about is not just returning people to the office, is what is that office experience going to be moving forward, and how are we going to elevate that to, yes, improve productivity, but also help grow and develop our people and our culture as an organization.
Fascinating. Again, loads of great tips for customers looking. Again, the whole blanket, Elon Musk, everyone is coming back. It was Bezos, I think, Amazon, wasn't it? Everyone's coming back to the office, versus, again, there's got to be that middle ground. And again, I think every organization is going to be different in the way in which they're going to operate and get the most out of their employees and their productivity around that.
And I think what also is true is that what most people were actually asking for was not, is it 3 days, 4 days, 2 days? And was it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what have you? What most people were saying, I need some flexibility. And I think that is the essence of how we have to design for the future, is flexibility. And that in itself is a challenge, because when you make a mandate, which a lot of organizations have because they can't think of anything else to do, which is, we are going to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Effectively, what you're doing is just creating a new norm. And you're basically saying, well, you're now going to have to fit around Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. What people actually say is, well, look, I want to have the flexibility to come into the office when I need to, when I can actually be the most productive and engage with my fellow employees. And therefore, a lot of organizations have adopted a much more design your own work day or work week process. And then it's a case of, how do you connect people together and become more dynamic in doing that? And they're actually proving to be more successful for some than the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday thing. And you literally shut down the office Monday and Friday. And so I think that for all of us, not only in the way we think about designing workplace, but the way we design technology, means we have to be very flexible in the way we design solutions, and not do the potted plant principle of how we've designed workspace in the past. So mobility, how people move around space, how technology follows them and supports them in open space, in closed space, in quiet space. These are all the kind of dynamics that mean that there's lots of smarts in the technology we now have that enables and supports that kind of work environment.
One last question before we let you go. Let's get you to maybe something we could look back on in future viewing. What's your view past 2025? Do you want to put a stake in the ground and give your vision for beyond 2025 as to what's gonna happen, what we're going to be the big movers and shakers, and where we're going to go? And we'll quote you back on it when we do the same thing next year.
Well, I managed to go through the whole previous section without mentioning AI. So
go on, then.
You're going to have to forgive me now, because I'm going to bring
augmented intelligence.
Augmented intelligence. So I've been very lucky. I started off my career in IT, and literally 2007, I switched into the AV industry. So literally, I've had half my career in IT and half my career in AV, and I'm so glad I did, and I can't imagine doing anything else. But the one thing I've learned about the AV industry, that fundamentally we exist to enable people to tell their stories and to engage fellow human beings with the support of rich media. And we wouldn't exist if we weren't, either helping to create, transmit, recode and present that rich media together with human storytelling. That's what we're about. What I've seen with AI and the ability to be able to not only enhance that media, to customize it and to personalize it, but also now to create it, is going to unlock one of the biggest issues we've had in the AV industry, which is the whole issue of the time, the cost, and the complexity of designing and creating rich media. And I'll give you an example. So if you go to the lobby of most corporate organizations, I bet you most of them will have a large LED display in there that they spent probably several $1 million on designing and putting up. I will also bet you that the content that's playing is at least 6 months old, and it's the same content that was playing, irrespective of the season or whatever it may be. And you ask the question, why is that? And the question is, well, it's so tight. It takes so much time and cost and money and effort to change the content. We now have the ability, with the support of AI, to dynamically create customized, personalized content on the fly, which means that every new visitor to a corporate lobby could have a personalized experience displayed on that as and when they walk through the lobby area. And so when you're talking about creating impact with what we do and creating customer value, just imagine how many more video walls, how many more encoders, how much more software we're actually going to sell as an industry if we can unlock the conundrum of content creation, personalization, and customization. So think about Minority Report if you wish to, but I think beyond 2025, we're going to be in the hyper scalable content creation personalization business. And that is going to drive the AV industry forward far faster than anything else we've seen.
Interesting. What a 2024 we've had, and what an exciting prospect for 2025 our two guests have painted for us. Let's cover back with them lastly to tell you how you can hook up with them and how they promote themselves on social media and how you can get in touch with them.
The best thing is follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I share most of my information. I reshare things from others who I think will find valuable to my group. I will not be at ISE this year, but I will be at Infocom. I'm at a number of events. I'll be at Crestron Masters in May in Madrid. And so I welcome anyone who has questions, who wants to have a discussion. It's something that I do not have all the answers, and I change my opinions daily based on the evolution of the world. But I'm always willing to engage and learn, with the community.
If you're looking to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn, which is just Julian Phillips AVI-SPL. You'll find me. As far as XTG is concerned, we have a microsite. It's www.AVI-SPL, no hyphen in the middle, AVI-SPL.com/XTG. And then you can find all about what we're about.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Some interesting insights. It would be great to get them both back at the end of 2025 and to see how many of those expectations and predictions came true. Thank you for joining us on the show. We do this regularly wherever you get your podcasts from. We're on YouTube, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all great podcast platforms. Add us, like us, subscribe to us, give us some great thumbs up, likes and ratings, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Smarter Spaces podcast.